Thank you, patrons. What up, nerds? Welcome to the Nerdy Narrative. My name is Leslie Smith, and today on the channel, I'm gonna walk you through my February TBR. Something I have been looking forward to reading ever since it showed up in the mail, and that is Herod the Great by Zora Neale Hurston. This was a gift to me from my friend Evie. She has a channel called She Was Only Evie, and on that channel you can find some live show discussions we have about this author who is a favorite we both share in common. Evie sent this to me and I about died. One of my favorite books that Zora has written that I've read is Moses, Man of the Mountain. That is a fictional retelling is what they're calling it. She took Moses and gave him the life, the folklore that surrounds Moses that she knows about, and I absolutely love that book. In fact, I really need to get that one on my reread list. Why in the world is this book coming out this many years after her death? Well, it's because it was an unfinished manuscript that almost went up in a fire at her home. Luckily, a neighbor was helping to put out the fire and saved the chest that the manuscript was in, and it found its way into the hands of scholar Deborah Plant, who finished it. I'm so excited to read this one. I'm going to have a shared experience. I'm not sure if Evie's going to have time to read this one this month. My friend Una from the Codex Cantina is another fan of Zora Neale Hurston, so I'm very much looking forward to that. Next is a book that Evie and I are absolutely going to be buddy reading together, as well as my friend Kate from the Literary Apothecary. We all were very fortunate to receive ARCs of the new book by Stephen Graham Jones called The Buffalo Hunter. This one's coming out on March 18th, so huge thank you, Saga Press, on behalf of the three of us. Thank you so much for granting us permission to read these ARCs so that we could get our reviews out. Stephen Graham Jones is another one of my top favorite authors. I buy everything he writes, and I usually buy every version of it that I can find. The UK, wherever else it may be published, with covers that I like. But this one is a chilling historical novel set in 1912 in the Americas, and it follows a Blackfeet Indian named Goodstab. A Lutheran priest is following Goodstab around and writing about him, and what this priest finds so interesting is Goodstab is going around and revisiting the fields of the Blackfeet Nation looking for justice. It's going to be bloody and purely on observation of this one's name, Goodstab. It's going to be stabby. But if you've read Stephen Graham Jones, you know that he is a lover of slasher films. He's written quite a few wonderful ones himself. I Was a Teenage Slasher being my most favorite of all of them. So I am looking forward to this one. It's going to be fantastic. Now, one I don't have in print that I don't want to forget to mention here is book 2 of the Locke Institute, which is The Trial of Rooker Flynn by A.R. Witham. Andy was so sweet. He sent me a code for the audiobook for this one to listen to, which is narrated by the author himself, which, besides the whole fact that Andy is a fantastic writer, he is a phenomenal audiobook narrator as well. And I'm just one of those readers that really enjoys when an author narrates their own novel. They just know how to put the right where it's supposed to be. So that one's on the list. I can remember what happened on the island in the first book and how it ended. It was very impactful, mostly because the island of Wangoon was covered in spiders. They only came out at night. There were these big yellow spiders that every time the sun went down, if you weren't where you were supposed to be, it's a prison, by the way, those spiders would eat you. So I'm going to suck it up because I have this huge fear of spiders if you're new here, and I'm going to get through the second one. Am I going to be able to manage with Andy bringing it to life in my ears? Well, you'll have to stay tuned to my reading vlogs to find out. Next on the list is one that I accidentally started a few months ago when it came in the mail, and then I realized uh-oh, this book doesn't come out till March. I better wait and read it closer to time so that I can put out my review and still remember it well enough to have a conversation with any of you who might be interested in asking questions about it. So this is Don't Tell Me How to Die by Marshall Karp. I got this arc from my friends over at Blackstone Publishing. I did start reading it. You can see there's a couple of tabs in here already. And what I read before I realized, because I was making notes in my reading journal about it, and I realized the publication was so far out. March 4th is the date. That is ringing a bell for me. I think it got pushed because the arc says November 5th. At any rate, I absolutely thoroughly enjoyed it. I think it's going to have some comedy as well as being a murder mystery. But what I remember of the opening is there is a news anchor who is standing outside of a hospital. There's this torrential rainfall coming down and he's reporting on the weather. The storm has knocked out the power to the hospital. They're running on generators. And as the camera crew just happens to kind of zoom in on the news anchor, right behind the guy, there's a pond that's in front of the hospital, a body floats to the surface. Y'all, that was just a great beginning. Even though I picked this one up back, I think in October, before I put it down, realizing I needed to wait, I remember that much of what I read. That was just a very strong opening. I'm excited to read that one, tell y'all about it. That's my first Marshall Karp, and I think I'm gonna love it. If so, I'm definitely going to be digging into his backlog. Let's see, there are a couple of others on the TBR that I don't have physical copies of. One is Scythe and Sparrow. That's the third in the Ruinous Love trilogy by Bren Weaver. Woo, y'all, I am just a fan of this series. This is not a typical series I would like. I would say this one is more on the smut-heavy, smut-focused side of things than it is plot, but it is so funny. I think one of my favorite things about Bren Weaver's books is her content warnings page. Yeah, you heard me. The page that, if I have problems with things, difficulty reading certain things, should give me pause in picking a book. That's what I enjoy most. Y'all, if nothing else, just pick up either of the first two in the series, Butcher and Blackbird and Lark and Leather. Just read the content warning page and you might agree with me. Just hilarious. I can't wait to see what Bren Weaver has cooked up in this one. And I think I saw on the news somewhere that this series has had its rights sold to be made into either a TV series or a movie. I don't care which, I'll take either or both. Oh my gosh. I need to think about who I would cast for the certain characters, because the characters we meet in the first book are in the second book, but the focus is on a different pair of characters. Oh, I just cannot wait to see what this one's going to be about. Another one that I have to review, it's actually next on my list of review reads, that would be The Exile of Zanzibar by Daniel Maidman. And let me click on it here and see. So this one is part of a series. It's the first book in a series called Railroad to Zanzibar. Oh gosh, this one has a bit of a science fiction twist to it. I think it's fantasy, primarily fantasy, but it features a main character named Claire who has built a device to fold space and time. Yet it has a flaw. So apparently Claire uses this device and she finds herself halfway across the world, thousands of years in the past, and the device is nowhere in sight. Oh gosh, so this is going to be really good. So a science fiction story / historical fantasy, it seems like, because she finds herself in the Bronze Age of Florence and she has to try and win an alliance with Marcus Diaphanous. I'm probably saying his name wrong. This one is definitely going to scratch my sci-fi itch. I haven't read anything sci-fi in a while, and I was talking to one of my patrons the other day and they were telling me how much they love reading sci-fi, and I was like, man, I haven't read any good sci-fi in a while, though I do have some coming up on my March TBR. Let's see, what else do I have here? Oh, well, let's talk about my patron pick of the month, and this is hilarious. Things got away from me in January. I thought I had selected my patron pick. I had not, so I missed January. I need to do my patron pick for February, so I had them submit titles, spun the wheel. The same patron won both January and February. So I'm going to do a reading vlog. And she submitted the same book both months. So I've reached out to her. Her name is Heidi. I reached out to Heidi and asked her for a second title. I'm going to do a reading vlog featuring both of those. The one that she has been submitting every single month without fail is Dreaming the Eagle by Amanda Scott. She also gave me a tip that the narrated one, the audiobook that I would want to get, was the one narrated by Josephine Bailey, I believe is the name of the narrator. I did find that one on Everand. Yes, for those of you who heard my rant about Everand, I'm still a part of that one. I talked with some people. I think we might have worked it out. I'm going to give them one more month, but I do have several books on there that I need to read because if your subscription lapses, you don't have access to those titles anymore. So the audiobook one that I want by that narrator is on Everand, but it wasn't in Audible. So all else fails, Everand is going to stick around for another month. Now, Dreaming the Eagle is the first book and I believe a trilogy. I'm not sure how to pronounce the trilogy, so once I get a hold of the audiobook and hear it pronounced for me, I'll tell y'all the name of that one. All right, next on the list is one that I have been very excited to read. It's called Wish Givers by Shannon. I have a ton of books by this author. I'm going to read them all in 2025. This author writes science fiction, fantasy, and there's even a horror novel that they most recently published that I'm going to be getting my hands on later in the year. So this one, what appealed to me when the author reached out to me about this one is that there's something to do with their magic system being tied in with tattoos. And you all know I love me some tattoos. I didn't need to know anything more than the magic system was tied to tattoos to want to read this book. But let me see if I can give y'all a little bit more information about it. This one is self-published, so you might not have heard about it like you have some of these other titles. Reva's clan, the Mali, tattoo wishes into reality. Once revered, the Mali now live in hiding with a precious few imprisoned in a pit beneath the Allies' palace. Burning for justice, Riva strives into the capital city, announces herself a wish giver, and allows herself to be bound. She knows that the only way to save herself and her people is to grant her greatest enemy his every wish. Ooh, that one's gonna be good. Ooh, wait a minute. Let me find that again. Ah, are they all the same? I'm looking at chapter headings. It looks like they are. So the chapter headings all have this little graphic in them there. That just entertains me. Little things like that just entertain me, whether it be like a little decoration on the edge of the page or something like that. I just find joy in that. Oh, another one that I don't have wait a minute. No, I don't. I bought the Kindle version when it came out because that was all that was available. This Inevitable Ruin by Matt Denneman, Dungeon Crawler Carl Book 7, releases on Audible February 11th. Now, I've already read the Kindle version when it came out in October, maybe it was. I had to read it. I had to know what was going on. So I read that one and I'm going to listen to the audiobook when it comes out. For those of you who have been collecting the new hardback versions from Ace Publishing, the next 3 of that series are going to be released over the next 3 months, I think starting in March. So March, April, May, you can get books 4 through 6. I'm expecting to hear an announcement that they've accrued the rights for book 7 too any day now. All right. Now, this book has been on my TBR forever. I'm not forgetting it. I am going to do my absolute dangest to get Blood Reunion read because there's a new book looming on the horizon. J.C.M. Byrne is writing like a madman in this series, and a lot of people that I've talked to absolutely love this one. One of my friends, J. Daniel Layfield, who's an author himself of some science fiction and fantasy titles, read this one ahead of me. We were supposed to be reading it together and I got left in the dust because I am an ADHD bookworm. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna read all these books, make this TBR video. Ooh, this book came out. I gotta stop and read it. And then just, yeah. So this one, our beloved Rohan, who is a half human, half Ildrak, I'm gonna call him a superhero in space. He works on this space station called Wistful, who is a sentient space station. That's one of the things I love most about this series. The spaceships start out as little spaceships, but they actually learn as they go. They get more information added to them, they get modified, and they sort of age up with it and become sentient where they can speak with you. I love that. There's also space bears, which I think they're going to play a pretty good role in this one. I am so excited. So Rohan is on Wistful, and there are apparently a nest of vampires that are loose. People are being found dead with the blood drain. So it's the logical connection that Rohan seems to be making, and who doesn't love a good vampire story? Especially, you know, I've always considered books that take place in space, that's just horror to me. I find space daunting. It's vast, it's dark, it's cold. We have no idea what all is out there. And you put vampires out there? Oh my gosh, that's just a recipe for annihilation just wiped out, which would be silly because then the vampires would wipe themselves out if they don't have any more bloodstream. Let me stop going down that rabbit hole and talk to you about the last book on this list for the TBR for February. What I have here is the gorgeous third book in the Realm of Fae series, A Deception of Courts by Ben Alderson, a fellow booktuber who has made a recent comeback on his channel. I'll have his channel linked in the description below, because while this is a romantasy book, one that is either about to come out or has recently come out is a horror novel, so you might be interested in checking that one out as well. So A Deception of Courts, this has been one of my favorite romantasy series that I discovered last year. I am so invested. When an author can take a trope that I hate, it is one of the top 2 most hated tropes. I just, but when you have, and he didn't even, like, it wasn't even happening. It was just, I met this new villainous character and I was like, ooh. It was kind of like when I just immediately fell for the villain in Shadow and Bone. I immediately fell for the villain in this one, and I was like, I know our main character kind of has a little boyfriend, but you know, this guy would make a great addition. And then I like saw myself. I'm like, girl, are you really wishing for a love triangle? A trope that you hate as much as the miscommunication trope? When an author can do that to me, I'm sorry, but that's just a mark of a great author, in my opinion. To make someone stop and want something they normally wouldn't, that to me is a really good just development of your storyline. In my opinion, you may disagree, you may agree. Either way, this is a series I'm loving. I can't wait to find out what's gonna happen next. The 4th book should be out really, really soon, so I need to get my hands on that one and have it lined up for future reading here in the next couple of weeks. So those are my selections for the month of February. I think I kept it low enough. There's a couple of them that are pretty short. I think I kept it low enough that I'll be able to easily manage these, provided of course I didn't pre-order a new release that I've forgotten about. I didn't have any written down for the month of February besides Scythe and Sparrow and This Inevitable Ruin audio, which all else fails, that would be the one I would cut since it's going to be a reread. So that is an exciting month ahead of me reading wise. I honestly can't tell you. I have so many favorite authors and then exciting new authors to read by. It's really up for grabs as far as what could be my favorite read. Anyway, I'm rambling now. I'm gonna let you all go. Thank you so much for watching this video. What are you most excited about reading in February? And are there any new releases coming out that you're picking up that I might not have heard about or forgotten about that I need to get in this house? Y'all let me know. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will catch you in the next one. This channel would not be where it is today without the wonderful support of its patrons, with a special shout out to my top tier patrons, Ev, Sharon, Kate, Andrew, Amanda, Ann, Tara, Star, Gail, John, Chad, Heidi, and Wilbur.